The first two episodes of this series could easily be described as awful, poorly written, and just plain lazy. This third episode certainly includes all of that, but it's insufficient to describe just how shockingly bad this third episode truly is. I think the best way to describe it would be disgraceful.
I am insulted on your behalf.
It's more than just bad writing. This series is constantly recycling material from other shows, other Star Wars properties, and now it's starting to recycle content from itself, using the same jokes from previous episodes. The sheer amount of laziness is astonishing. And of course, along with all that is the ever-present lack of attention to detail. Also, in this episode, for some reason, the CGI used is significantly worse than the previous two episodes. It's almost as if they ran out of budget and just left a lot of things in this episode unfinished. The Book of Boba Fett is bad. Episode 3. We open up with some exposition from Boba Fett's droid. He explains that the district has been broken up into 3 separate areas, with each one being controlled by a different group. Jabba the Hutt controlled these through sheer force, while his successor Bib Fortuna used uneasy alliances because he lacked the manpower. Boba Fett is in an even worse situation because he has even less. A watermonger from the workmen's group arrives to petition Boba Fett. His group is responsible for supplying all the water in the region, and recently he was attacked by a small group that stole some of his water. He also informs Boba Fett that the people of the district don't have any respect for him, partly because he got his ass handed to him a few days ago, and also because he hasn't been doing enough to establish control and order.
I am insulted on your behalf.
The man says that if Boba can solve the problem with the group that stole water from him, then Boba Fett would start gaining new respect from the people in the district, and that the man would double his tribute as a thanks. Though it doesn't really make a lot of sense for this guy to seek out help from Boba Fett. While Boba is the daimyo of the area, the Watermonger is a member of a group that controls 1/3 of the entire district. You would have to assume that group has some sort of enforcers in order to control the area. After all, if the workman group is strong enough to hold 1/3 of the district even against 2 other major powers, then why is it that they are incapable of dealing with a small group of thieves who are stealing water from one of their members? It simply doesn't make any sense.
Interesting.
This is especially true when it's later revealed that the small group of thieves live within the area controlled by the workmen. So it's not like the workmen would even have to go into another part of the district and invade one of the other group's territory. This small group of thieves lives within the workmen's area. More than that, the thieves make no attempt to hide themselves. They're standing in the open, not even 20 feet away from the very building owned by the Watermonger that they had stolen from. Why are the workmen group, which is strong enough to hold 1/3 of the district, not doing anything about this?
Am I right?
Later that night, Boba Fett easily finds the group of thieves. As I said, they're not making any attempt to hide themselves, and it's revealed that they all have a variety of cybernetic implants, and they ride brightly covered hover bikes. So these clowns basically look like a combination of Power Rangers and the Borg.
Oh my God! What's wrong with your face?
Of the Clown Rangers, Strong Woman character then proceeds to insult Boba Fett to his face, which in any other situation other than this garbage series would have resulted in her disintegration. She also says that Boba Fett is a crime boss just like the rest of them, and she shakes her head as if she somehow disapproves. And it's a bit ironic considering that she and the rest of the Clown Rangers are nothing more than low-level thieves themselves, so I don't know why she thinks she's any different. Sure, Boba Fett is doing criminal stuff, but so are you.
Who the hell is this bitch?
The Clown Rangers then complain that the Watermonger was charging too much, and that was the reason why they stole from him. They continue saying that there's no work to be found, so they can't pay for anything. Boba Fett responds by saying they live in the workers' district, so why aren't they trying to work? And the Clown Rangers say, "Look around you." And I guess this is supposed to imply that there are no jobs available, but that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense because they are completely surrounded by buildings that are used for a variety of businesses. So, look around you. Okay, I see a whole bunch of businesses that could hire people. What are you talking about?
How come God hogs up all the good followers and we get all the retards?
Also, there's a good amount of irony in the Clown Ranger's statement of look around you, because one of the first things that you'll notice is that this group of thieves are all using extremely expensive cybernetic implants And they're all riding extremely expensive brand new hover bikes.
The Treasury bear such expense?
So we're expected to believe that the Clown Rangers are unable to find work and that they're unable to buy food and water, yet they had no problem affording the implants and the bikes. How are the writers so fucking bad? Boba Fett decides that the Clown Rangers are now going to work for him, and at this point the watermonger walks out of his building, which, as I mentioned, is only about 20 feet away. He gets mad at Boba Fett for not recovering his stolen property and says that they still owe him 1,300 credits. Once more, I need to point out that credits are not used as currency on Tatooine. It doesn't matter what kind of credits they are. New Republic, Old Republic, Imperial, doesn't matter. They don't use credits in the Outer Rim. They are worthless. If the writers on this show had even the slightest bit of knowledge about Star Wars lore, they would have known that.
Best season ever!
Boba Fett refuses to give him all 1,300 of the worthless credits that have no value, and instead only gives him 500 of the worthless credits that also have no value, and then he commands the guy to lower his prices for water. Boba Fett heads back to his base to get another juice box and some more nappy time in the bacta tank, and then we get another flashback, and this takes place a little bit after what happened in the last episode. Boba Fett is traveling into town in order to collect payments from the Pike aliens, and this is the protection money that he was going to force them to pay. However, upon speaking with the leader of the Pike aliens, Boba Fett is told that the higher-ups in their organization don't want to pay protection money to multiple groups, because another group claims that area, so Boba Fett will have to deal with them in order to get money from the Pike aliens. And that other group is the one with the speeder bikes that Boba Fett stole from. Upon returning to the Tusken camp, Boba Fett finds it destroyed by that other group, and all of the Tuskens have been killed.
I see this as an absolute win.
So this sort of makes sense that the other group would be angry at Boba Fett and the Tuskens. After all, they're the ones that took the bikes and then destroyed them during the train attack. Once more, the show, however, is trying incredibly hard to garner sympathy for the group of Tusken Raiders, and once again, I will say, fuck that.
How about new?
As I explained in the previous video, the Tusken Raiders are inherently bad people. They have an awful civilization and an evil culture. They kidnap others and force them into slave labor and then work them to death. The group that Boba Fett was with did the exact same thing. They captured a badly wounded Boba Fett who was near death and forced him into slave labor. They did the same thing with the Rodian, and the only reason why Boba Fett is still alive is because he managed to kill the lizard thing. Otherwise, he would have been worked to death in the desert just like all the rest.
Give me something for the pain and let me die.
So I don't care how much sad music the show creators put into the background. I don't care in the slightest about these Tusken Raiders. They were evil, and Tatooine is better off without them. Once more, fuck them and the bantha they rode in on.
This is the way.
Moving back to the present, Boba Fett is awakened from his little nappy time to the sudden attack of the Wookiee who works for the twins. There's a long, drawn-out fight between the Wookiee and Boba Fett, where the Wookiee ends up throwing him around the room, obviously to not do any serious damage to him, because, in truth, the Wookiee would have been easily strong enough to have killed Boba Fett instantly, especially when Boba Fett is unarmed. Remember, Wookiees are capable of quite literally ripping people's arms off, so there's no way that Boba Fett would have survived even more than a few seconds had this Wookiee actually been trying to kill him. But it gets even dumber, because during the fight, the Wookiee bites down hard on Boba Fett's hand, and yet mere seconds later, we see that Boba Fett's hand is completely unharmed.
That's what turns me on about you. Your attention to detail.
I've seen kittens capable of doing more damage than this Wookiee is able to. Eventually, the Wookiee grabs Boba Fett in a bear hug, and this is when the lead Clown Ranger strolls into the room. And when I say that she strolls into the room, I mean exactly that. She certainly is not trying to sneak up on the Wookiee. She has time to do a little flare with her weapon, and she's not moving with any sense of urgency at all. She walks into the scene with the very typical strong woman, yas queen attitude that we've seen on any number of garbage CW shows.
Will be. When it fits a woman.
It's an obviously forced attempt by the show creators to make this character look badass, because there's something that you should know about this female Clown Ranger. Before the show was even released, this character was being hyped up as super strong, amazing woman character, and that she's going to make all of the man babies cringe back at how awesome she is.
Now we'll build a projection machine.
That should tell you pretty much everything you need to know about the character and what you can expect from her moving forward. As we've already seen in the show so far, she's incredibly arrogant and extremely unlikable. In other words, she's the typical strong woman character that the woke weirdos can't get enough of, which I'm sure will go over quite well with the normal people in the audience.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
But don't worry, it gets worse. The rest of the Clown Rangers arrive and everyone begins fighting the Wookiee. Of course, Boba Fett gets the worst of it and continues to have his ass handed to him. The Wookiee then fights the two Gamorreans in the main room, and he easily defeats both of them, but of course, he just so happens to be standing in the exact perfect spot so that Fennec can hit the trapdoor, which then drops the Wookiee into the Rancor pit.
It's very convenient.
Very convenient.
Because every single aspect of the story in this series requires plot convenience to move forward. Look at the size of this room. It's gigantic. And the trapdoor is at most 2.5 feet across. I don't care if the Clown Rangers are trying to pressure him to one side of the room or not. That doesn't matter. The idea that the Wookiee would be standing in the exact center of this trapdoor is fucking absurd.
Your story was supposed to be awful and stupid. I just failed to predict how well that would mesh with the theme.
Yeah, I get it. We saw Luke fall into the pit in Return of the Jedi, and then we saw the nostalgia bait where the shield guy fell into the pit in the previous episode, and now the Wookiee fell into the pit in this episode. You don't have to keep doing it. We get it.
Fell into a vat of redundancy. God damn.
It's like nostalgia bait is the only trick in the bag, and they just keep reusing it, hoping people will be excited each and every time. Regardless, the next day, the twins arrive at Boba Fett's palace with an offering and a message. They claim responsibility for the Wookiee and apologize and even offer a Rancor as a gift. They also tell Boba Fett that they're leaving Tatooine because the area has been promised to a different syndicate by the mayor, and they don't want to get involved in any large-scale conflicts. However, this doesn't make any sense because the mayor is nothing more than a puppet. The daimyo of Tatooine is the one that has all the power. So the mayor can't just usurp the daimyo and decide to give the district to someone else. That's not how it works. But Boba Fett says he's going to stay on Tatooine anyways, and he even offers back the Wookiee, but the twins don't want him, so Boba Fett frees the Wookiee, and then he just runs off into the desert. It's pretty obvious that the Wookiee is going to reappear later in the series, and probably end up working with Boba Fett, or maybe even saving his life or something stupid like that. I also couldn't help but notice that for some bizarre reason, they allowed the Wookiee to keep the energy weapon knuckle things that he was using during the attack. Here you can see when he was using them, and now here you can see that he is still wearing them, even though he was their prisoner and in handcuffs. Now granted, being in handcuffs is going to limit your fighting ability, but these weapons in particular are activated on the hand. You could still just kind of strike out and hit someone even though you're handcuffed. You could activate the energy knuckles and use them. So why would they let him keep them? It's another great example of the show creators and their stunning lack of attention to detail, because quite frankly, they just don't care.
You can smell the shit from 5 miles away.
I'm not so sure about the twins, however. If it's the case that the twins just never show up again in the series, then I would have to ask, why were they even included in the first place? Why not just have Boba Fett in conflict with the other syndicate from the very beginning? It's like the twins were included as placeholders just because the show creators wanted to add yet more nostalgia bait and include some of the Hutts. It's also a pretty good way to pad the episodes and stretch the series as a whole, because this is what the Disney Plus show creators have been doing ever since the beginning. All of the Disney Plus shows have been padded out with extra garbage that didn't need to be there, simply so that they could have extra episodes. And a great example of that is what happens in the very next scene, because the Rancor is then brought into the pit, but doesn't seem to want to do anything, and it's just laying on the ground. But then it gets even more dumb, because Boba Fett asks why the Rancor is just laying there, and the trainer responds by saying, "The Rancor is depressed." The Rancor is sad? You have got to be kidding me. Who came up with this nonsense? Probably the same moron who thought combining the Borg and Power Rangers was a good idea. But don't worry, it gets worse. We then get over 3.5 minutes of Boba Fett treating the Rancor like it's some sort of little wounded puppy. 3.5 minutes of Boba Fett making kissy face noises while trying to pet the Rancor. What a wonderful use of screen time.
Did you want me to weep with joy? It's terrible!
Boba Fett decides to have another visit with the mayor, and he brings along the Clown Rangers. Remember in the last episode when the secretary was trying to make excuses that Boba Fett didn't have an appointment? Remember how unoriginal and cringy that was? Well, guess what? They do it again! The same stupid scenario played out a second time. Please, please, get some better writers.
Know your fucking place, trash.
Once again, Boba has to force his way into the mayor's office only to find that he's gone. However, Boba Fett runs outside to see the Major Domo driving away. The Clown Rangers are told to pursue, and we get another incredibly bad, unoriginal chase scene. This chase scene has all of the stupid tropes that you would expect. Two people are carrying a large object across the street. Normally it would be a big sheet of glass, but in this case, it's a large painting of Jabba the Hutt. And of course, one of the Clown Rangers crashes through it.
I expect nothing, and I'm still let down.
Wow, that's so funny. I mean, it's completely unexpected that you would do the exact same thing that's happened a million times before. And then the female Clown Ranger uses a ramp to catch up to the Major Domo's car, just like Anakin did during the pod race. I mean, it's like poetry, it rhymes. And the piece de resistance of this garbage, unoriginal chase scene is when it finally ends as the Major Domo crashes through a bunch of fruit stands and ends up in a position that looks exactly what happened to Biff Tannen in the Back to the Future movie. The difference being that while Biff Tannen was only covered in manure, the entire series of the Book of Boba Fett is manure.
That is one big pile of shit.
Boba Fett confronts the Major Domo, who confirms that the mayor is working with the Pike aliens, just as we see a lot of them arriving on a large ship. I honestly can't believe that someone wrote the script for this episode. I find it harder to believe that someone was actually paid to write that script, and I find it even more difficult to comprehend why this travesty was ever filmed, edited, and then released.
I am insulted on your behalf.
This is what happens when all notion of quality is discarded and when quantity is made the sole priority. You end up with this. You end up with the Clown Rangers. You end up with recycled garbage. You end up with the supposedly feared bounty hunter Boba Fett making kissy noises for over 3.5 minutes. What you end up with is nothing short of disgraceful. But thankfully, that's the end of episode 3.